10 o'clock, I'll call the meeting in order. Agenda, any additions or deletions? I do, they're all. Robin?
If we could just add for discussion enclosed for the urban community resource center and citing legal for discussion, please.
You said legal? Yeah, is that emergent? It's emergent though. It is emergent? Okay, anything else? Robin's moving the agenda with the addition. Vote. It's carried. Minutes from last meeting. Dustin's moving the minutes. Everybody read them? Good with them? Vote. It's carried. 5.1, Tarlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you is the financial update for accounts payable for August of 2023. Is there any questions?
Blaine?
Okay, page 17, the action land environmental thing study. I'm just curious what that was for and what that was about.
So that would be the environmental monitoring at for the Urban Community Resource Center when the construction began.
Shane? Oh, you got one more?
Yeah, I have one more. The Texas gate cleanouts, what was like, are they ours or how come we're cleaning Texas gates?
Yeah, so those are the ones on the south of the base along that road.
Shane?
With, I noticed there's a bunch of gravel haul invoices. Did that tender, or did that all go out for tender? Or is it a set rate, or are they being paid by the hour, or how are we doing that one?
Yeah, at the beginning of the program this year, we put out a contract to set a per kilometer rate, haul rate, across the board, so it's not up and down. So that's where and then we can pull the contractors in that agreed with that rate.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Blaine's moving the account payable list. Vote. It's carried. CAO report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 55 is the CAO report. So the recommended motion is to accept the report as presented. Also, I got an email yesterday I just want to share with you from Parks. And you know, every year Council's made a commitment to provide $50,000 to the Elkwater town site for capital projects to assist them for the folks at the town site. So for 2023 to be finished in 24, this is what they would like to do. They would like to put an 8-foot high, 770 feet in length, chain link fence around the helipad area with a locking vehicle gate and locking man gate. Purchase a fuel bowser for the helicopter, a storage shed in the helipad compound, an 8-foot high lock chain link fencing around each of the fire pump stations serving the Elkwater town site wildfire sprinkler system. So so just want to make sure that those are the projects are meeting what your criteria was for that 50,000. And if we have concerns with it, I can speak with them further on it. I just got this yesterday.
I think ours is for roads and,
So roads, sidewalks,
yeah,
those type of things, gravel in the alleys, asphalt repair. That was the intent of it. Okay, that's what my understanding was as well. I just wanted to confirm with you. Yep.
go ahead.
Have we ever communicated that in writing, that the intended purpose of that was the 50,000, or was it just an allocation to parks as a contribution for assist?
So when it was provided to them a year or so ago, there was parameters with it. And it was encouraged to be used for inside the town site for infrastructure upgrades.
You should use your mic more.
Mr. Hawk is hard of hearing. He asked if you'd use your mic a little more.
It is on.
By the way,
I'll yell at you.
Yeah.
You want me to yell at you? I can.
sure.
No,
I'm just teasing. So I'll speak with them. Yep. Because they're asking for permission. So therefore, they know that it's probably not in the parameters of what was originally suggested and agreed upon. So, no, I'll talk to them.
perfect. Any other questions? Richard?
On the contract ordered to MJB for the Dunmore Junction 3, dirt work and then gravel too? Will they be able to drive on it once this is done or not?
Yeah, no, it's just the dirt work, pre-grading, getting it to the subgrade level, preparation for next year.
I know I'm going to get asked that question, that's why I wanted to confirm.
All right, Richard's moving the CAO report. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Your clock is ticking there, Mr. Jacobs, on the old Trans-Canada Highway. Are we getting anywhere with their deficiencies, or what's happening there now?
To date, we're no further ahead from the last update. They do have Tetra Tech, their appeal consultant, scheduled for this Tuesday coming up. Our consultant will be out there at the exact same time and going over everything that they're going over, just to ensure the information is collected at once and it's consistent. So my goal is next meeting to report back.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay, anything else? Not seeing any? Vote. That's good. Oh. Yeah,
That's me.
Reeve and Council's report. I don't have anything to add in there. Everything's there. Start with Robin.
Had a couple calls with regards to utilities, again, out in the Desert Bloom area, just looking for some information. We had a good ICF meeting last week. Some good conversation. Looking forward to the 4th, when we have our 3 councils getting together for dinner. That'll be good. Had a couple of points of contact with individuals with questions with regards to the urban library, but again, that's what we'll discuss and close later on. So other than that, it's been pretty quiet.
Blaine?
Yeah, not real busy either. I attended the Urban Ag Society meeting the other night. Lots of good things happening down there, lots of maintenance issues being looked after. They've gotten the new doors put in. Redid their Zamboni pad in the back that was cracking up, and been lots of hockey practices going on, and it sounds like they, got a lot of bookings. It's going to be very busy down there this year. Curling ice, I think, is coming in. It should be in October sometime, they're thinking, so that's coming along good. they're redoing the bar, so the bar renovations are ongoing, and it's all framed up when we were down there. That's gonna look really good. There's gonna be lots of access for the waiter, waitress, whatever, to, you know, serve people, and that looks very good, so. Upstairs, yep. Yeah, so it's a nice facelift for the lounge up there. Looks good. They're also having an AGM meeting. It will be on the 26th of October. So they'd like a really good turnout. Anybody wants to go down there, more than welcome. Met with Richard and Beth and Barry Neubauer at the Urban Resource Center yesterday. We went over the progress there, and they're really coming along nicely there. The interior's all been drywalled. They're mudding it right now. The playground stuff is all in, and they're working on putting the barrier-free asphalt stuff in as we speak today, so that's happening. The power's been turned on, so the sod should be coming in here right away, so, you know, another week or two, things will really change there. I think they were just finishing doing the pilings there so that they could put the stucco on. That should be happening pretty quick. So also we discussed what we kind of could use or need for furniture inside there, you know, some couches or something, just some things for some seating and maybe some stuff for the kids area. So there were some discussions over that, as well as we discussed having a donation wall. We've been having some inquiries of some people that would like to donate to the library. So we had that discussion of what we could set up for a donation wall. So yeah, it was coming along pretty nice down there. And that's all I have.
It's been a really quiet couple of weeks for me, actually. Spent a lot of time in the Combine. Actually got to go camping before the year ended, so I was pretty happy with that. Did have a little quick meeting with the Seven Persons Community Association, just dealing with their proposed campground they want to do in the park out there. So there'll be more to come on that.
Shane?
Yeah, fairly quiet. Attended Foothills Little Bowl meeting on Friday. Some phone calls about dust and gravel roads. And I forgot the last meeting to mention that I did represent council at the Halo Golf Tournament, which was good again. And that's about it.
Richard?
Friday, September 8th, attended a PEP meeting in Dutchess. We did the first phase of a strategic plan. Karen Blewett was leading us, led the group, got us thinking about direction we're going to go and where we want to be. Tuesday, September 12th, attended a Verge Economic Development meeting in Foremost. Beth also came along and gave us an update on all the upcoming events that Cypress County will be doing. Friday, September 15th, traveled to Lethbridge to attend the Foothills Little Bowl meeting. That was very interesting, and we did have a delegation that was there from the Bow River Basin Council, and we had the chair of the Bow River Basin Council. Learned a lot about storage of water. There, as I think Dan had mentioned before, that the town of Cowley has run out of water, and they're currently trucking it right now, and because there was not enough water held back in the Old Man Dam. And anyway, there's lots of challenges out there, but there is some studies that are going to be coming up. There'll be potable water and wastewater studies, because if this economic corridor is going to go between Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, and it's a food industry part of it, they do need potable water. So is there going to be enough? How much is there? We don't want to get hurt down on this end, because we are on the last ones that are going to do it. Also, it'll be interesting to confirm who actually has control over the river and who can put on water restrictions, because, Darlene, how did you explain that to me? There's so many dams on there that it's not a free-flowing river anymore? Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's an artificial flow.
Yeah. And the Alberta Environment has said, well, this is when they've got some numbers out there, and when the flow goes down a certain amount, they think they can impose something, but they don't really have any control, so.
Ultimately, it's the municipality's responsibility.
Yeah, yeah. And so, anyway, there'll be lots of good things coming out of there, and there'll be clarification, and I think it's very important because I don't think it was a 100-year drought, but there's going to be droughts, there'll be floods, there'll be all of that stuff. So it's good to see there's some planning going on. I continue to receive complaints about big marble stockpiling their waste material on private land just off the 71. Some of the neighbors' concerns is the fact that as that pile gets bigger, what's our plan if there's a fire? Are we going to try and put it out? Are we going to stand by and watch it? It's got plastic in it. I said, I have no idea, but they have a lot of waste material coming out on a regular basis. So where are we going to be 5 years from now? Where are we going to be 10 years from now? It's just going to get bigger and bigger, and how are we going to deal with it? We don't want another one of those disasters that we had out on the 41A. So something to think about down the road. And that's it.
Michelle?
Most of mine is in there. The only other thing, I've been getting some questions about the lift station in Schuler because the annual Rust and Shine is coming up on the 30th of September. So I've received a few phone calls on them. And if anybody is interested in coming and helping me serve breakfast that morning, it's the 30th.
Well, pretty busy. On the 3rd, I went to the Elkwater Community Association. A lot of talk about grants and what the county does and doesn't do to them, or I should say for them. And so I had discussion with our staff about how things work, and then I got they put in, it's coming up later on today for out of the CAP fund, and they put in a grant fund, but I'd like to thank Kim for pretty well doing it and helping him out. If he hadn't have done it, I don't think it would have got submitted. So, thank you, sir. Other than that, there was lots of phone calls on roads out there, and one actually phoned and was very happy about the weeds, said it was a professional job up there on the bench. And he definitely wanted me to pass it on to you, so.
You got a question on it?
No, I just had something I forgot that I was going to add. I did have a conversation with Sid Bodine from Volker-Steven regarding Highway 887 because they haven't mowed it yet this year due to our fire ban. So I did say to him that he should be contacting Public Works because we would more than likely allow them to mow it if they were following it with a water truck in that area, because it's getting to the point that the kosh is like 6 feet tall on the side of the road and it's a large hazard. So I'm hoping he gets in contact with you about that.
Keith?
So just to add to Dustin's comment, I did phone Volker-Steven about the 884, and the fact that they have not mowed it once yet this year. And it's a bit of a problem because we have about 30 to 40 resident deer on that road every night. And if you actually have to really pay attention, or otherwise a few of them get smoked off. But everyone that gets smoked off represents an accident. And I said, sooner or later you're going to be calling me, so let's. And their reasoning for it, and I understand, is because it was so dry, they didn't want to start a fire. But the county's done their ditches and just followed with the truck. So anyway, other than that, it's council meeting, and I went to the PEP meeting with Richard, and the only thing I'll add to that is there seemed to be quite a good discussion on the East Alberta Economic Corridor. And found that pretty interesting. There's a lot of different viewpoints and suggestions and concerns, and a lot of different people involved in that. And of course, then it kind of migrates over toward the 36 and this whole eastern part of the province, and you know what we want to see going forward. So, other than that, it's all good.
Richard?
Just to clarify one thing, when Blaine was speaking about the base or the material that's going in for the playground area, it's not asphalt. It's going to look like it, but yeah, it's a rubber base. It's going to be about 6 inches thick. They're down there now. It's a outfit out of Calgary. I think first lift is about 4.5 inches. That's the coarser one, and then another one on top of that, and another one on top of that. It's about a 3-day installation, and then that'll be done. And once that's done, the landscaper has to actually wait. They're stuccoing on the front. So as Blaine said, it'll be a few days yet. And also the asphalt for the staff parking and along the back of the building should go in next week too, I think. Yeah. So we're pretty impressed. It's really coming together great. So.
Any questions on the reports? So the one that Richard's talking about for Big Marble, they're stockpiling. I thought they were just spreading that stuff, but now they're stockpiling?
It's always been stockpiled in that location. We had a fire out there, I want to say 2 years ago, where they had tried to burn some of that stuff and then it reignited on them. And it is, let me be honest, it is absolute hell to deal with. Because those piles they haul them in with a dump truck essentially, and they just pile and pile and pile and pile, and then they push it up with a payloader, and then they pile some more. And they're doing it on a dry corner of a quarter section is what they're doing.
So do they not have to, that's a business, obviously, disposal business. Do they not have to have permits from the county to do that?
Well, it's agriculture. And so so they have, they follow different rules. We talked about this a couple years ago, and we talked to Alberta Environment. What we could do is we can bring back the information that we had before. And trying to remember, because it was a couple years ago that we talked about it, but the stockpile, because you cannot take it to someone else's property. It has to be within the farming operation, and somehow it is. But we will look into it and bring it back.
So it is stockpiled on their land?
There's a connection.
There's a connection, okay.
Yeah.
I wonder, because that should be a separate business if it's being stockpiled and then,
But it's an agricultural business. It's not like, it's commercial in intensity, but it is deemed a regular agricultural business.
So does that, sorry.
But, yeah, but we'll bring back, bring back what we investigated before and with some updated information.
Yeah, and I would like some clear direction from council to the fire chief as to what we will do when and if it happens, as far as, are they going to try and put it out, which could cost us thousands of dollars, big time, and a big risk to our firefighters. So the only proper disposal is to put it in a landfill and cover it with dirt and then eliminate the oxygen, and there's no problem down the road. So
My question was regarding that dry corner, but I think we've got that answered. But approaching it from the aspect of fire, depending on which way the wind is blowing and the intensity of the wind, that can be a real issue to the surrounding people that live there and Big Marble who works there if the wind is in the right direction. and access for the fire department. And, you know, if the pile's really big and it's half rotten and it's got plastic in it, it becomes very toxic. And it really opens up a real mess of how to put that out and then keep it from reigniting down the road.
So since I've been in there, I'm very familiar with where it is. So it's a dirt access trail into it, onto the far end of a quarter section that borders a coulee and then it's on the east side surrounded by irrigation canals. So the access sucks. So, and it goes right onto that 9-mile coulee. So that's a nice big grass coulee that runs right into those, all those residential subdivisions on the Wholesome.
Yeah, like, if the fire chief could have a good look at it and report back of what he thinks of the danger, the access. And I mean, if it's leaves, you know, waste material going, and just to get a fire, a fire report from our fire chief on it, and what his thoughts.
I hear, I guess, two different conversations going on. One is about disposal, one is about fire control. If their plan is to continue to dry it out and burn it, I think that's the fire conversation. My understanding is that it's more there to compost, break down, so they're not hauling water in plants and paying for the water in the disposal at the landfill. And if that's the case, I'm just kind of curious if there's a practice, because what's the difference between compost and silage? You know, you have something wet that's in, I believe it's compacted, right? So I'd be kind of curious to know whether or not there are other practices. Perhaps there's a way that if they are looking at composting it, that there's a barrier or a barricade and that they have to do, you know, these steps or something like that, as long as it's not being burned. Because we do compost, you know, similar thing with silage, and there's going to be some kind of a practice that helps to keep things safe too.
So after the last fire incident they had there, it was decided that we wouldn't write any more fire permits for them. So they're not looking at burning it anymore. As for referencing it to silaging, like you stated, we compact silage when we make it, and that inherently takes and gets rid of your risk of it spontaneously combusting, because it makes the density so high that it can't happen. With that material, I don't think you could actually take and even do that, just because of how it's made. It's not shredded. When we silage, we cut it down to a length of, you know, under 3 inches, and that way you can actually take and compress and compact, where this is the full vine and whatnot. So it's kind of a weird situation though, because it's getting hauled out of one business to another business that I'm guessing they've hired to take and dispose of this, and they're choosing to dispose of it by doing this instead of hauling it to a landfill for say. So it's touchy.
It is all ag, but it's two separate businesses basically, so it's a hard one. Richard and then
Yeah,
Michelle. and then-
so Robin, I look at it as silage has an end plan, that there's a plan to use it up, and I don't see a plan for this. And I know a little bit about, well, Redcliffe is struggling with some of the landfill, the same type of material that they get in from the Redcliffe greenhouses, and I don't know, maybe Shane or, what's your name again? Lloyd? Can tell us, have you been able to figure out how to separate the plastic from the actual vegetation, and do you have an end plan for that stuff?
Reply to Richard. Yeah, they brought in a machine, and it is taking the plastic out of it. Not 100, but very close. And And then they're adding them wood chips and making good compost, and then the stuff with the plastic and that is going into the landfill site. But yeah, there is a way to get rid of that plastic.
Is it expensive?
We'll know more after Thursday when we get our report.
Get the bill.
It's not free.
What is free?
Just before, yeah, go ahead, Michelle. Or Lloyd, do you have more to add to that?
Well, I was just going to add that the machine that they're using, they made a deal for compost. We're not paying anything. They're taking, I forget how much it was, and it wasn't a whole lot. But once that machine goes, I don't know what then, like Shane said, that's coming up again to find out. But it works. They managed to make it a Class A, and they're selling it now by doing it, by using this machine. And I forget where it came from again. It was a contractor that made a deal with Red Cliff.
Okay. Michelle and then Keith.
My question is, you had said that they didn't want to haul water, or like haul it till the water dried out. So once it's dry, are they hauling it to the dump?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I believe that was originally the intent was, right? And so Richard made the comment about how silage has an end game. And I think that's what we're missing in this conversation is there an end game? What is it? And, you know, if you can't compact it to keep it safe and, you know, like those kind of conversations, because if there are loopholes and there's ties in ownership that allows it, the next question is, okay, so then now what and how do we?
Keith?
So, I guess, hearing that there's plastic in this, and, you know, I think of, in terms of other producers that deal with mesh and with twine, what are you going to do with it? Are we just, you can't just allow this stuff to build up forever. And it doesn't make good silage by the sounds of it. If it's the whole vine,
No, just,
Yeah.
we're comparing it to.
Yeah, I was just like the practice of, you know, containing, sorry, I jumped in. Do you mind if with the plastic part, what I'm kind of thinking too, and like even with twine, like back when I was growing up on the farm, if we had a pile of old bales, there was twine in it and everything. It was tough because you couldn't go and just chop it up. And, you know, every 5 or 10 years, you'd burn your old hay piles or something like that. What's the practice now is when it's dry, there's no leftover hay piles left. But to me, there's some kind of comparable to it in a sense because you have, and it's not like it's 90% plastic. You've got those little twines, and I wish that the industry could come up with a biodegradable version of it that would allow it with, you know, 9 months to break down, and then you could literally, I've spent a lot of time brainstorming how you could make this simpler, yeah.
Okay, well, we'll leave it to Tara Lynn to look into it again and bring it back with some kind of ideas. We all hammered that pretty good. Shane's moving the reports. Is there any other questions? Vote. It's carried. 8.1, Tara Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 2024 orthophotography partnership projects on page 110. That's a two-part motion. The council allocate $195,000 towards the 2024 capital budget, with funds coming from General Administration Equipment Replace Fund to participate in the 2024 Southern Alberta Orthophoto Partnership, and that Willow Creek is the managing municipality on behalf of Cypress. So we do this every 3 years. And it seems like we just did it yesterday, but it's 3 years already. So, and we use orthophotography in so many ways, from assessment, public works, agriculture, planning. It's endless on the applications of orthophotography.
Michelle?
I'll move it.
Okay. Robin?
So I want to bring this up just for point of discussion. Back about 3-4 years ago, Wayne Bokenfor was a councillor in Sturgeon County. Talked to me a little bit about what they do or what they were working on, some different projects and with regards to orthophotography, as well as integration with things like fire services and municipal assessment and whatever. And what they were doing is they were working with a different company that actually they had were demoing a drone that they either leased or purchased or they had that would go out and you can set it up on the grids. And Ken, you from engineering too, the guys are doing surveying more and more with them. But they basically employed this drone to do their own services. But whenever there was a fire call, they could actually reroute it to go and do investigation on that. And they kind of integrated some of the emergency services to see if it was a false alarm or whatever that was kind of going on. It was an outside of the box thing that was intriguing. And I just, based on the fact that we were having the conversation, I was kind of curious, if within your administrative networks, have you heard of any municipalities taking that further? And would that be something that we maybe want to look into a little bit? Because it does seem like an interesting concept. Line of sight is pretty quick.
Very interesting, because you brought up some really good points. I mean, especially with the drone, and we have such vast area in places that is inaccessible by vehicles, and when a fire does start in these remote areas, something like that would be very, very handy. It's, quite interesting.
Through the chair, we've been addressing different drone companies about that exact process. Now with the flyover, there's some huge cost efficiencies because all of Southern Alberta's doing this. So we can look at what it would cost for a drone, but I'm assuming that it would be virtually, if not more money, because I think there was a whole bunch of municipalities that do it every 3 years, and we have some managing partners, and we get special rates because they do Calgary at the same time. And yeah, so this is, but for exploratory for fire purposes, yeah, we've been looking into that, but through a contractor, not in-house, due to the cost.
And also too, we talked about the resolution on the orthophotography for hamlets, looking at using a drone to get better resolution of photos. So administratively, we talked about that as well.
Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, and that makes sense, economies of scale when you're getting everybody in there. One of my son's taking the flight academy through the school district, and I had mentioned to the superintendent at one point about this program up north, because they were looking at training pilots for up in the northern areas and remote areas, and I had kind of mentioned, because they do a lot of their drone stuff, I said, wouldn't it be cool if there was some kind of a crossover where we could have students that were training, and maybe they could, maybe we've got a pretty entrepreneurial school division right now. Maybe if there's ever the opportunity, Kim, with the drones, and perhaps there's some opportunities for some operators and some integration that could happen to that too. So good conversation.
Yeah, something to look at in the future, but I have a motion on the floor for this one for right now. Shane, you're making it?
Sure.
No, I made it.
Oh, you made it, sorry.
The first one.
Yeah, yeah, sorry. Okay, any other questions on it?
Getting old, eh?
Yep, hanging around you guys, I'm getting old. Vote?
I was gonna say, old age is contagious.
That's carried. You're making the second motion, Shane? Shane's making the second part. Any questions? Vote? It's carried. 8.2, Tara Lynn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Elkwater Community Association funding requests on page 114, that council commit $20,000 from the cap levy to the Elkwater Community Association for the rehabilitation of the pickleball courts upon successful completion of their CFIP grant application. And this is the RFD that Councillor Lloyd was speaking of earlier. Councillor Lloyd, do you have anything further to add?
No, pretty well said, and this covers it. Just that it was a rush, and again, if it wasn't for Kim to get the grant in, then we couldn't do this, and it's just if the grant goes through.
You're making the motion then, Lloyd? Okay. Floor is open. Any questions on it? Nope. Vote. That's because you got so many. 8 point, oh, that's carried. 8.3, Tara.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sole Source Urban Community Resource Center shelving and mobile tables. The recommended motion, the council direct administration to sole source the purchase of the Urban Community Resource Center portable shelving units from Love Dayon Libraries not exceeding $45,000 as the expenditure of the 2023 budgeted project, and it's on page 116. And I believe Councillor Blaine is going to speak to this.
I guess I can. So basically what we're doing is we're just asking to sole source the same amount, the same shelving that we got originally. We just, due to, I guess maybe budgetary constraints off the beginning, we decided to hold back on some of the shelving originally, but we decided that now everything is getting complete. We were able to have the money to buy them all at this time, so they match and everything's right, and they'll be able to, you know, use the library as it's intended for. So that's what the ask is for.
Okay, you're making the motion then? Robin?
Just curious, Midwest is our contractor, right? Or is the builder that's doing that? Why does the sole sourcing need to come through us versus them seeing this through?
Because the shelving was not part of the project.
And a change order wouldn't have fixed that?
No, because that's out of scope for the project, so we need to follow our procurement policy.
And our procurement, I thought everything that's over 75,000 is what needs to be tendered.
But if you want just to get one quote,
Okay.
not, so you have to, I don't have it in front of me right now, but if you want to spend up to, we'll say 10 grand, you have to have 3 quotes and that sort of thing. So this is a complete sole source.
So we haven't had any other quotes?
Richard?
No, we had contacted Petra from Shortgrass Library System, and she said this is the supplier that almost all the libraries in Alberta use. We did a little bit of checking around, and yes, the product is good. It's made in Canada, and it's what we wanted. So the other part, Robin, was if we went through the general contractor, there's about a 15% markup, right? So because it wasn't part of their tender, their contract, we could save some money there.
Lloyd?
Well, and the other reason we went through this company was the fact that they were professional in it, and they were able to match everything up, and they were able to, you know, look after the maintenance and what do you call if something breaks, the warranty and stuff. So we felt that this was the proper company to be going through for this equipment.
Okay. Any other questions on it? Vote. That's carried. 8.4.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Policy FP01, paid on-call stations, page 119. The recommended motion, the council approve policy FP01, paid on-call stations as presented. And if you go to page 122, the changes are in red and they follow, and it's in regards to the amalgamation of the 1-4 station and Elkwater.
Dustin?
I'd like to move this as amended. And I don't really know how to word it, but my thoughts are on it. If the 1-4 station is no more, it should just be referenced as the Elkwater station. And if the Elkwater station is going to have a wildland firefighting group, we reference them as that. Because I know it's probably done this way just to, you know, for the feeling's sake of it, of the one for firefighters. But if we do it properly the first time, we don't have to go back and address it again. So I think we should just take and do it right the first time.
Favorable amendment.
Favorable amendment, yeah.
You know what the wording is then, or do we, you guys are good? Everybody's clear on what's going on there? Okay. Yep. All right, vote. Carried. 8.5, Tarlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Policy FP12, Fire Services Level of Service, on page 127. The recommended motion, the council approve FP12 paid on call as, Fire Services Level of Service as presented. And it's the same thing, Mr. Chairman and council, is the wording changes with the amendments of the amalgamation of the two departments.
Keith, you're making that motion? Okay. Any questions on it? Vote. Carried. 8.6, Tarlin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before you, on page 147, is an information brief in regards to the Cypress County Community Resource Room, and that is at the Dunmore Fire Station. And the recommended motion is council accept it as this report is information, and I believe our Director of Municipal Services would like to just share about this project.
Thank you, through the chair. Yeah, so this project was initiated prior to me coming on to Municipal Services, and I guess the conversation in the past was, if you want it, you need to fundraise for it. So they started fundraising for it, and we have a plan. We've met with a couple different contractors, so it depends upon how much funding we have that we're able to get prior to January 15th, because that's the next CFEP grant application deadline. And then, but the idea was, what we described in the past is we want to see that to fruition. So fully enclosed, separate air makeup system, and in the front of that entry, when you walk into that building, it's a full 20, I think it's a 21-foot mezzanine. Is part of that training room is to make additional office spaces in that front foyer. So instead of being 21 feet, it'll be your normal 10-foot entrance. Yeah, that's it in a nutshell. And then we're very close to having the matching funds for the grant application. But one process that was missed in the step was getting council's blessing on moving forward with this fundraising and grant funding.
Dustin?
I'll move that. But my question is, since we're doing this fire academy and things like that now, if they don't meet or do not get the CFIP grant this year, would we be willing to take and pay for the other part of it? Because I feel as though since we're doing this and we're bringing these kids in and we're using that training facility for them, we should have it done properly and be separate from the shop itself. So just a thought in my head that if, for some reason, if they don't get that CFIP, I think we should go ahead with it anyways.
Through the chair. So the money that we have in place will do, it would enclose it, but it limits the scope of what we're trying to do. But yes, we have enough money in place to do the makeup air system and enclose the wall. And then after this next funding raising, we'll have enough for the exit, but we won't have enough to do the front mezzanine. And so the idea was to utilize the CFEP grant funding and make those improvements that will sustain that program long term.
Shane?
You know, we have 800,000 sitting in our community aggregate payments levy fund. This is something would just about fall under, because I mean, it's to benefit everybody in the gravel industry. They could have accidents. I mean, all this training, it's for the whole county. And I feel it's something that would fall under that. You know, there's no different playgrounds are for kids, but I mean, this is something that's saving everybody's lives, kids, adults, seniors. You know, so, I don't know, guys. I really think that if we don't get that funding, that we tap into that account, because it's something for the whole community.
Mr. Chairman, the alternative motion is that council directs administration to put it on the 24 capital.
But it's just bringing forward today, so it hasn't been turned down from a grant yet. So we can just approve it today, and then if it does get turned down, we can put it on capital.
Yeah, it's an information brief, yes. This is, not to make any decisions. This is just to let you know what's going on.
Okay, I got Michelle first, so.
I'm in favor of this, because when we originally bought that building, wasn't that why we bought it? Was so we had extra office space and extra training capacity and all that stuff. So it just stands to reason that we would carry through with this.
Lane?
Yeah, I like the project too, and I like the program. I guess my question is, so is there going to be funding that's going to be needed down the road to carry on the program? I guess that goes along with Shane's comment he made about maybe at some point building, you know, or allowing some funds to be able to continue on with the program. So.
The programs, the kids pay for, or the parents pay for the kids for the programs. So.
Yeah, through the chair. So the reason why we brought it down is for information is because it's something that we've never got approval for. Like we've been going out and doing fundraising, but technically we haven't got council's blessing to move forward. So that secondary motion would technically, if we bring it back, would allow us to continue on fundraising. Because if we bring it as information, then we really can't be continue on with the fundraising because we don't have the blessing of council. But so the 2024, hearing what I've heard is that we would still continue on with the grant, but if it wasn't successful, we'd bring it back for council's deliberation.
Robin, did you have something?
Yeah, just more of a point of clarification for my own sake. I think I would need to abstain from this just due to conflict potentially with my son, who is assigned and enrolled in that program. And so just because of the fact that the conversation that we're having right now is so connected to the fire academy, I'll abstain from the vote when it comes. Unless there's a reason why I wouldn't need to, but I think, well, no, but my son is benefiting directly from it. So if we're talking about training all around, I'm okay with it. But if this is specific to the fire academy and that, I'd rather be upfront, and if council feels like they're okay with me voting on it, I'm okay to do that. I just wanted to be
Well,
transparent.
my grandson's in there taking the same course, so that doesn't mean I abstain. I'm not gaining from it.
Conflict though is limited to your biological children. So if he was benefiting financially, if you could vote on something that your grandson benefited financially from, but anything that you would, your spouse or your biological children, you can't. So.
Kim?
Yeah, through the chair. With this project, it would assist with the academy that we have going on, but it's not the driver. The driver is that we are having carbon monoxide in the building when people are training, and this is just to make it safe and that it's compliant for all the training that we put on. So over 4,000 hours of training that we put on in that facility.
Michelle?
I don't think it's going to be a conflict really, because the fire academy isn't the main priority. When we said that we were building that for training and getting all that, there was no fire academy. So personally, I don't think there's an issue.
Okay, I haven't got a motion yet. Richard's making a motion.
Sure.
Receive for information, so you can move forward. Vote.
Yeah, didn't Dustin make this?
Did you make it? I thought you made the one before that. Oh, you didn't make it anymore.
Whoever West Land misses the motion portion, I get it anyway, so it's good.
All right, that's carried. Steve just showed up, meeting adjourned.
You can turn your sign upside the other way now.
Right way around now.
Mr. Chairman, our delegation is ready on Zoom.
On Zoom? Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll be ready to go. Okay. There we are.
Morning.
Morning, Caitlin.
So just some background, Mr. Chairman. So on page 8 is the Highway 3 Potable Water Wastewater Working Group. There's an introduction, hopefully you guys had a chance to read it, and a general description of the project. And Kaylin is the managing partner on this project. And this project goes hand in hand with a agri-food industry, hopefully developing more along the number 3 corridor. And so the hope is to apply for an ACP grant in October 2nd, I believe, Kaylin? And so this is to ask if Cypress is interested in being a partner in this group and to be part of the ACP application. And so I think our meeting was, 10 days ago or so? So that's when I first got involved in it. And so it's something under Council Strategic Plan, developing the agri-food industry is one of the items that you have identified as important. And so this is one of the steps along the way.
Okay, thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good morning. It's a little nerve-wracking to speak to another council, but thank you for making time on the agenda here. I've enjoyed getting to know Tara Lynn over the last couple of months, working in the South Regional Stormwater Project, and more recently this Highway 3 potable water and wastewater infrastructure servicing study that will be between the cities of Lethbridge and Medicine Hat, including the cities of Lethbridge and Medicine Hat. And in a nutshell, I've been assisting MLA Grant Hunter's office at the local level with some administrative work and also putting together an informal working group, technical working group of different CAOs and support staff along the corridor, where we've been looking at what our needs are, what our growth horizons are, and what kind of opportunities there can be for us to work together. We have retained MPE Engineering to provide some high-level assistance to date. And essentially, the way the project has been structured is the Highway 3 corridor between Lethbridge and Medicine Hat has been divided into 3 zones. Zone 1 would be the city of Lethbridge, Coaldale, Lethbridge County. Zone 2 would be Tabor, MD of Tabor, Barnwell, and possibly Bow Island. And then Zone 3 would be Medicine Hat, Cypress County, and some of the other hamlets along the way, including 7 persons. The servicing strategy for each zone will differ. They can take place concurrently or separately. We aren't proposing to do a major water or wastewater line from Lethbridge to Medicine Hat. In speaking with MPE, the topography of the lay of the land makes it more economical to divide the servicing framework into 3 different zones with separate plants. What we're hoping to do through the ACP grant is to obtain the funds to do a higher level feasibility analysis of what type of a servicing framework would make the most sense for each zone, investigate the acquisition of water rights, which would be key to being able to build the infrastructure and to attract large agri-food business, and also identify any joint industrial development opportunities that might be available in each of the 3 zones. My role in this was simply just helping our MLA gather the local communities together, and the idea is to work closely with each of the municipalities along that Highway 3 corridor throughout the study process, and to use the grant dollars from the ACP program to cover off any of the expenses. I believe MLA Hunter had a meeting recently where he invited the mayors and reeves of the corridor. And then a few weeks before that, we met as technical staff and CAOs. And I believe in your package, there would have been a letter from MLA Hunter's office, basically identifying what it is, the kind of scope of work that we're looking for, and what we plan to do with it. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, but in a nutshell, we are looking for 2 resolutions, one for the town of Coaldale as managing partner for the potable water infrastructure study, and then also a resolution for the wastewater component, where the town of Tabor will be serving as the managing partner. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for Kaylin?
So Kaylin, so each application would be up to $200,000, correct?
That's correct.
And so it would be the county's contribution would be, like, because there's 10 communities, would be approximately like 20,000 per application?
Actually, I've got good news. The ACP is one of those few grants that's 100% funded by the province, so there wouldn't be a financial contribution
Okay,
at the local level.
perfect. Start the car?
It's a change. Yeah, start the car, yeah. She said, start the car. Oh, that's good. Robin?
Sorry, it was Kaylin?
That's right.
Kaylin, hey Kaylin, it's Robin Kirpywhite here. The question that I've got is, in the past when we've looked at potable water, it becomes cost prohibitive on larger scales, and I was wondering if you guys had any conversation about raw water, and then kind of more of those remote water treatment plants along the way, or are you thinking like big water treatment plants that range, have main supply lines that are coming out, 100 kilometers type of a thing? I suppose all water is raw until it's treated, right? And I'm just trying to understand, kind of would we potentially have the opportunity to run raw water off of it if it wasn't coming from, I guess, the water treatment facility, or yeah, and it also makes a big difference if it is fully funded by the province. That'd be great, but I think that's going to be a pretty monster project too.
Thank you for the question through the chair. That's one of the questions that we're hoping that a higher level engineering analysis might be able to look at, or the cost benefit analysis of a major plant with a long supply line versus more localized water treatment plants for some of the smaller communities. We'll be interested to hear what the numbers have to say about what might be the more cost feasible route. And I think my understanding, and just speaking with the engineers so far, is the infrastructure solution might look different for each zone, given that the opportunities and constraints differ in each zone. So the city of Lethbridge, for example, I can comment on that one just simply because we're neighbors with them. The most cost-effective approach for that to work would be a major investment in the city of Lethbridge water wastewater plant, and then an examination of what type of regional supply lines could the city provide to the area up to and past Coaldale. Whereas the solution for Cypress County and Medicine Hat might look a little bit different, and the solution for Tabor and the MD of Tabor might look a bit different yet, just simply because they're not right next door to a large urban municipality.
Dustin?
So a question I have, are they looking on using existing infrastructure and extending it, or are they looking at doing a complete new setup with this? So I'm guessing, I'm just looking at like Zone 3, which would be us, where we already have a potable water line that runs to 7 persons. Would they be looking at doing an extension of that, like out toward the Whitwall area and past, or do they want to build different infrastructure that comes from Sable Island and comes back our way?
Again, like those would be the type of details that they would look at. I think they're going to turn over the rock of either scenario and come up with a cost benefit analysis. Really, if you want to look at the attraction of large agri-food businesses for certain areas, there will be some upsizing that'll be required if that's an area where an agri-food business may locate. If there's an industrial park that's in that area, part and parcel with the availability of service industrial land will need to be the proper amount of water for their industrial needs. What we're hoping to do is create infrastructure not just for, say, up to 10 agri-food businesses to locate along the Highway 3 corridor, but also to look at the growth outlooks of the different municipalities along that corridor. Because if you bring in 10 agri-food businesses, big job creators, a lot of spin-offs, there's going to be a lot of growth that's going to take place in the communities along that corridor. And as a result, we're going to have to upgrade our water infrastructure to keep up with the growth that these large businesses are going to trigger in our region. So to answer your question, depending on where we identify the best locations for these industrial parks to accommodate an agri-food business, that's likely going to be a key determinant in what areas have to receive the upsizing versus which areas simply just need to be extended to provide water for more domestic purposes.
Any other questions? It's good to see we see it's in the first stages here, but there's going to be lots of questions to come, but once the engineers can answer some of them for us, we'll be in a better situation. No, I'm not seeing any other questions, so. Oh, Keith?
Actually, is there a time frame with this? As far as getting the study done? Like the engineering and that stuff?
Ideally, through the chair, what we'd be hoping for is to have the completed studies a year from now. I think that's a fairly realistic, conservative timeline. We don't want to overpromise, but the deadline to apply is October 2nd. And if we can hear good news by Christmas, we'd be fairly satisfied with that. And then you're looking at 2/3 to 3/4 of 2024, where you're looking at the actual study. And there will be a lot of stakeholder consultation with the municipalities along the corridor, because we want to make sure that we ascertain the needs of each of the communities correctly. And in order to listen properly, we don't want to go so fast where we gloss over the opportunities for the key stakeholders to participate.
Yeah, makes sense. Any other questions? Not seeing any other questions. So thank you very much for your presentation. Darlene, did you have anything to add to it?
Just thank you, and council will, later on here, will hopefully determine if they wish to participate or not. And I'll let you know.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, and nice to meet everyone virtually.
Thanks, Kayla.
Thanks. Have a good day. All right, before I go in closed camera, do we want to discuss this, to participate with it, or? Dustin?
I see no harm in participating with it. You know, what's worse is going to happen. We may gain some ag industry out of it, so that, if there's no cost to us, there's no harm, no foul, really. And have some ability to maybe sell some water at the end of the day, too.
Richard?
Yeah, we really need to be part of it. We're at the, as I had mentioned before, we're at the end of the irrigation system water. If they're going to play around with that, we need to be there to remind them not to
Forget about us.
forget about us. Yeah.
Blaine?
Well, I was going to say I have no problem, participating. It doesn't cost any money. It'd be nice to see what the study looks like, but I just, my concern is just having the availability to the water. You know, like Richard said, I mean, we are at the bottom end of the totem pole here, and if we spend a bunch of money on infrastructure as this project develops, and you know, we get years like this for 5 years that we get a dribble of water, it'd be something we'd really have to think about and consider.
Robin?
Yeah, I'd be curious if we're in zone 3 and that involves Medicine Hat and obviously Red Cliff, the county, possibly Bow Island, depending on where the water would be drawn from. Like I know we have water licensing out of the South Saskatchewan, right? That's where our water license is for. If they're bringing it from Lethbridge, I just did a quick look, but elevation favors us. You know, but if you're drawing all that water from a different watershed, now you're having to look at different water licenses potentially. Is it the same watershed? completely. So that helps. The one conversation that I think we should probably be having, regardless of whether we go ahead with this, and it falls into water security and our region, is, here we are this year, we've got water restrictions on right now, right? The city is concerned, the town is concerned. City of Saskatoon has a wharf to keep water elevations high enough that they can actually have water retention. If we're going to rely on a pipeline, that's, great. But I think that we should probably at some point be looking at doing our own study on what the cost and process would be like to work as a region to try to secure some water levels at the river in Medicine Hat or south of or east of, to ensure that we aren't running into scenarios where we don't have water, period. And not just for what comes through that water line. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we're pursuing something like at the scale of Meridian. It might just mean that we put in something that guarantees a 12-foot watermark through the city that ensures that the town, the city, and by extension the county have access to water on dry years too. So I would support being a part of this and pushing for that, but I don't think it's the only solution. I think we should be looking at this secondary option as well, and it might be one or the other or both, but I do think that we need to be prepared, because great, if we get funding through the province for the whole thing, that's awesome, but I don't know how funding works on wharf style projects, and I think that we should have some conversations, because we still may need to put some skin in the game on something like that.
Lloyd?
Well, I agree with everything that's been said, and I definitely agree we should be part of it. And mainly because of what I actually learned and what we heard in the little bowl meeting. And I think Robin's right. We should be looking at other avenues, but that'll be down the road. But I think we should go ahead with this.
Michelle?
Yeah, I'm in favor of this because we don't have water in this country. So just pretending that it's going to get better or always going to be there isn't going to work. So the more studies, the more information we can have on how to keep water into the future is all good.
So you're making a motion to?
Sure.
Well, here we go.
Yes, I will make a motion.
To proceed with this.
One that the town of Coalville does the water, and the town of Taber does the wastewater.
Okay, well, I'll
Okay.
do paper, just because.
So you're doing the wastewater?
Sure, and then you can do the water.
Okay.
So they would be serving as managing director for the 3 zones, but not being, because the way that I heard it presented, and I probably misunderstood, but so if they're managing director at this point, it's not just for their zone, right? It's they're looking at it, and it's zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. That's zones, not priorities, not stages or phases. It's zones.
They're managing partner for the HCP grant.
Okay.
So a municipality has to be the partner, and so why they're breaking it up into 2, so then they can get the 200 for each, not just 200 for combining them together.
Okay.
So yeah, they're the magic, so someone has to be,
Yeah. In charge.
yeah, someone
Okay.
has to be in charge.
Works for me.
Yep.
Page 10, you said?
Yeah, so 8 is where the letter 8 and 9 are the letter from MLA Hunter, and then to follow was the example of the motion. Yep.
Okay, so Lloyd's moving to support the Coaldale on the first one. Any questions on it? Vote. It's carried, and Michelle's moving to support Tabor on the second motion. Vote. Richard. Okay, that's carried. I need somebody to go in camera. Lloyd's moving to go in camera. Vote. Kim, can you get the door? recommend a motion for the council direct to go to, list it with, you know what I'm trying to, realtor, that's the word I'm looking for. Who's, Shane's making that vote?
I haven't voted no yet today, there's only fingerprints on the yes.
Yeah. Okay, I don't need a motion for the other one, do I? Yeah. Okay, so no. Did you?
Okay, I'm like, looks good.
Yep, perfect. Richard's making that motion. Vote. Yep. See if Robin's watching that. See if Robin's voted green or not. Is that carried or? Carried.
I didn't really care, I just noticed I hadn't voted no yet.
Well, that's a bad time to freaking vote no. Meeting adjourned.